Welcome to the podcast, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Are you excited?
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be back here.
So you're from Maryland, but you now live in LA, or that area?
Well, I'm from Maryland, but I now live like suburban Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I'm from suburban Maryland.
What would you say like the kind of differences between living here and then LA?
Oh God. I mean, it's so like, because I feel like there's like all these different pockets of Maryland and all these different pockets of LA, but I'll just say like the LA is way more different. It's like portals. Like each you drive 5 minutes and it's completely different. Portals. Like I'm not like it's like there's like different. Yeah. There's a lot of differences, and then like Maryland is kind of like a subtle transition from like place to place.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think like the big difference. It's like it's scenery, landscape, and like attitude. For some reason when I'm on the East Coast, I'm like, oh, this is reality. Like I'm
this feels like real life.
Like I'm in real like I'm in reality. Like the whole time in California, I've lived there for 8 years. I'm just like
when I lived there, it really like didn't feel like I was living there. Yeah, it was like a weird.
It's a limbo. It's a sort of like, but it's magical, right?
Yeah.
Like a chrysalis for a butterfly, or like a womb. It's just like a weird like. For me, it's like, is this real? Is time real? Is anything real? Am I real? And then when I'm in Maryland, I'm like, oh, like this is the base timeline. Like this is base reality.
I don't know if it's because that's really how it feels for other people, or it's because we're from the East Coast.
Yeah, because we're from the East Coast. I don't know. I know that's what's true for all of my friends who are from the East Coast, but yeah, it's funny. It's like I feel like California for me is kind of like a fever dream. But I love it. I love it so much. Like I love being in that fever dream. It's awesome.
Tell me a little bit about what you do out there. You're in school. You're a comedian.
Oh God, yeah. I'm like
do all these different things.
I'm doing everything. I'm getting my master's in positive psychology, it's a program focused on happiness studies. So I am essentially studying happiness. Which is cool. And I've been doing nonprofit work for the last few years. And I also do stand-up comedy and produce like sober open mics. And they're always like themed. So we'll have like we had like a drag us not into temptation biblical open mic, drag themed open mic, and we'll always have like fun little themes, and they're also always substance free.
Yeah.
So it's like
you're sober as well. 3 years.
Yeah. Crazy. Hear that, Baltimore? Last time I was here, I was a menace. Look at me now. I have 3 years of continuous sobriety.
Mm-hmm. And you got sober out in LA or here?
I got sober here. I've terrorized Los Angeles just as much as Baltimore, but I was in treatment in Baltimore for almost for 18 months. It's crazy. Like I'm back now, 3 years sober.
Yeah, you're out here visiting just family, friends.
Yeah, I'm out here visiting my mom, and I feel like I'm I don't know. It's trippy because
to be somewhere where you got high a lot and then.
Yeah, well, I think because Maryland, I've been in California since I was 18, but Maryland is it's kind of the place that I've gone back to when I'm all right, I need help, and so now I'm coming back and I'm I'm actually pretty okay. I'm in one piece, you know? It's oh man.
You kind of come back to ground a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not coming back to essentially cause destruction and chaos, but I'm coming back to see friends and family and get it's for really wholesome reasons.
Very wholesome reasons, yeah.
I mean, historically, at least, before 5 years ago, that was not the reasons that I would come back here. It's like, I got to escape what's going on the other coast. Like,
for sure. I'm really curious, though, a little bit on what you're studying with psychology on positive.
Yeah, positive psychology. So
yeah, tell me a little bit about that and how that's a whole subset
of
things.
It is. It's a whole subset of things. It's all about like neuroplasticity, which is the fact that our brains are spongy and can be rewired. They can be rewired with the everything that we take in, everything that our new actions, and it's like all about how do we rewire our brain, our subconscious, and our nervous system to get to a state that is, I guess, like level or at least leaning towards contentment and happiness.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways to rewire your brain,
When I first got sober, what like my mentors and even like AA a little bit was trying to teach me is that change your actions and it'll soon change your subconscious and your like negative thoughts.
Yeah, it's a lot like that. It makes sense. Very 12-step aligned. There's like it's kind of like just like stripping away a lot of like old habits, behaviors, and all starting with like the subconscious mind.
How can I start?
How can you start? Well, meditation. Meditation's a great way to start. I think that the best function of positive psychology is practices of self-compassion. And to do that, like on your own, I would recommend like a loving kindness meditation, like a daily practice of loving kindness, because that like is the most like self-compassion I've found, like working with self-compassion, which is something that I've done mostly in my therapy practice, like receiving therapy, and what I hope to do for clients as well is like is rewiring the brain so that like we realize we are people too. You know, like I'm a person too. So if every human living being deserves base respect, that's also me.
Right? Sometimes we treat others with such respect and we just say the meanest things to ourselves and believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something I'm trying to do currently in my life as well. And I've actually been talking about it a lot on this platform recently.
Yeah.
With like my 3-year vlog and my lunch break vlog. I'm like, I feel like shit and I can't perform at 100% right now and I'm beating myself up for it. And I'm like, I need a break, but I feel shitty for needing a break right now. You know?
Yeah, it's that like
I
sneaky
always,
little shame.
Yeah,
thing.
I always feel the need to be like at the max productivity level, max accomplishment level, max success levels.
Yeah.
And it's just...
And that will break us. That's like direct one-stop shop to burnout.
And I constantly preach, you're human. Like there's... Like, let's be realistic. Stop setting these unrealistic expectations on yourself. And it's like, why am I not actively telling myself that? But it's like, I have to constantly tell myself that so I soon believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what like rewiring our brain, like the self-compassion stuff and sort of like a loving kindness practice teaches us, because like if I'm telling myself, you know, like you're not worth anything unless you, I don't know, lose 20 pounds or get this, whatever, then I'm still telling that to a person. And those are abusive things that I'm saying, you know, and I'm a person, right? So it's like, I am being like, even if I'm being nice to everyone in my life, but I'm doing that to myself, I'm still treating a person that way, you know? It's like, I don't understand.
A reflection, like the way you treat other people is a reflection of how you treat yourself as well.
Well, I think that we can be really kind and loving and generous to other people and really terrible to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how that works.
That's why you're in school, you're studying.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to figure that out. But I know that there are so many people who walk around like just beating themselves up for everything and like being so kind and loving and gentle. I don't believe in the idea that like everything we say to other people is how we feel about ourselves. You know, like I think I have walked around for so many years of my life having such a deep sense of empathy for others in the world and like none for myself.
Yeah.
So that can happen.
So the way to kind of combat this is by
But it's like leveling the scales, you know? It's like I'm a person too. Like, why don't I just balance that out? Offer myself a little bit of just like base respect.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be liked, doesn't have to be love. Base respect that I would give any Joe Schmo blow on the street. It's also like, it's part of humility. Because if I'm not better or worse than anyone else, which is like humility, then I deserve base respect just like every living being. And that's why I tell myself and my sponsees all the time, like, I'm a person too. Like, it's literally like my mantra. You have a self-compassion kind of routine? Do you like in your routine or like in your recovery? Like, is there a way that you incorporate that kind of like loving dialogue?
I honestly don't. I feel like over time I've been nicer to myself, but I don't have like a thing that I do. I think it's just been overall just different things that added up to me having self-compassion, like forgiveness. Like I've worked a lot on forgiveness and acknowledging the harm I've caused, but also I was a sick person. So that ended up coming like with self-compassion. And just like different things I've learned like over time. It's like been a build up, but there's not like a thing I do, which I would love to start incorporating. Yeah, these are all things we do subconsciously. So once we're aware that we're doing them, we have to consciously like fight that and combat that. That's what I meant to say earlier.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think it's contrary action.
Yeah.
And contrary action can be with the voice in our head telling us that we're terrible,
I feel like we're all
not belonging.
Yeah, we're all in a fight with the voice in our head.
Yeah.
That's what causes all of our stress.
Right?
All of our bullshit, I swear.
And
all of our anger, everything bad. It starts with this and like the voice in your head.
And it's, for me, I think underlying all of that, that's shame. That's the idea that I don't belong, because like we all crave belonging. Like it's the idea that
I really do.
Right?
Like I think that's something I'm craving now as well, is like belonging in like a group of people. That's something I'm craving.
Yeah, it's hardwired into us because we need each other.
We're social people. Human beings are social beings. We love a pack, a herd.
Yeah, we need belonging like we need air and water.
Literally, just like how AA is like, oh, big part of this is a fellowship.
Yeah.
Being with people that you relate to and like can talk to.
Yeah, we need that. And I think like, I don't know, just realizing that I'm a person has been a crazy trip, you know, that I'm not just like this entity that beats up on myself and tries to rescue and love other people.
It's so simple, but it's like the simplest thing. It's like, you're a human too.
It's like, oh my God, wow, I'm real. Look at my hands.
But it's like, it's very interesting how hard we've made this on ourselves, just because where does this start?
Oh, God,
like, I don't think we're born like
I think that
doing this to ourselves.
I think that the trauma and narratives and shame are passed down through generations, and like they get ingrained in us. And then the people who are lucky, because otherwise we die, we get to break that and rewire our brains and our bodies and pass down a different message.
We're that generation where we're breaking it.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And I feel like most of the people I bring on this podcast, they're part of that generation of like breaking the stigma. And
breaking the stigma, breaking the cycles, you know, because like it's not, you know, I don't really think it's like people's fault that things they get passed down and passed down and passed down and accumulate. And for me, what I think the big thing that gets passed down is shame, and that shame compounds. And then there comes like a sensitive kind of person, which I believe all addicts are just so sensitive, you know, and we're like, I'm either going to like go onto the bitter ends and kill myself with drugs, or I'm going to look at this shame, this pain that's been traveling forever.
How's that journey and process been for you? Addiction and and kind of like recovering from that, even with the stigma.
It's been the journey of a lifetime, I think. I would not want to keep living the way that I was, you know, on the time. I don't think I would have survived much longer, but I thought it was going to be so bad and scary. And when I looked at my things, like the fourth step and all of the like shadow work stuff, I looked at the things that were killing me. The harm that's been done to me and the harm that I've done to others. When I looked at that, I thought that would be it. Like, that was the scariest thing I just kept running from and running from and running from. A lot of it is like early childhood stuff. Like, I'm running constantly. And I thought looking at it and stopping would kill me. But actually, the running was what was killing me. You know, like I was running so fast, and I've given myself like, or honestly, it hasn't been me really. It's like something universal, abundant love that is in me, but is not me. Like, it's way bigger than me. Has given me this like moment of like grace to look at it and not die. And every time I look at something and I don't die, I get so much stronger.
Yeah. Interesting how we think looking at things and having maybe even certain conversations is literally going to kill us.
Yes. Like that amends, or like,
but like literally the things we were doing in the midst of our alcoholism and addiction, like that's
us and other people,
like literally physically could have killed us.
Yeah.
But me having a conversation with you about my feelings, that's gonna be
that's it. I'm done.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah, it's fun. I think that I'm so grateful. Like, when I was in college, like, I didn't see a future for myself. I got sober at 22, and that's because I didn't know that there was one in which I could be okay, and that one was addiction recovery and being in a fellowship of just hilarious addicts and like people who are just trying to work on themselves and are real and funny and ridiculous and just like me, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't know that was out there. I like feel like I've been given not just a wonderful life, but like a life, you know? Like, I've definitely been given amazing opportunities, gifts, like abound, but I didn't think there was one for me. Like, I was just like, all right, well, when I graduate from my free ride at college, that I'm gonna get off the train. And I didn't have to. Like, there was a world in which I didn't have to, and I could get on a different train, and I was on the Junkie Express, one road to recovery, and it was awesome. It's been awesome. It's been really hard and really painful at times, but I've always had a belonging, and I've always had friends and like people who just, I show up in my mess and they accept me unconditionally. And like, where do you find that?
I swear. The people like put in our lives, especially in recovery, are just true lifesavers. I don't know. It's just, they're so, compassionate. Treat you like a human.
Yeah, right?
And like, if you fuck up, it's like, that was dumb, but let's work through this.
Let's go. Let's keep going.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, we're put in a very lucky place when we decide to escape the mess of our addiction.
Yeah, when we decide that we're worth it, or like, you know, that like maybe we have a shot at living a different way or living, period. We get this world of unconditional acceptance and belonging that's just kind of built in. And it's like, who in the world gets that?
I'm curious on other mental health struggles that you've experienced throughout your sobriety. You said something about ADHD, anxiety. We were talking a little bit about the fact that you don't drive because of
Oh yeah, I am traumatized, and I think there's a sprinkling of learned helplessness in there. But I have a lot of mental health challenges. I have bipolar 1.
Really?
Yeah. Which people are so scared of. They're like, oh, that's a big one, but it's not as bad as the biggest one, which is BPD. Like people get, but it's, I don't know, like it's just the way my brain works. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Doesn't mean I'm threatening or dangerous. Like I'm a fully functioning, most of the time, adult who is sober and works with people and has a career. Like, but I think there's just like, I don't know, like people get really like, again, like stigmas. Like when I first had got diagnosed and had my first bipolar episode, I was essentially like, I didn't want to leave my room for like a year. And this was right before I got into recovery. Because I was like I felt like I had been like brandished with like a scarlet letter. Like I was like, I felt like, like just, I was like, oh my God, like no one's gonna ever,
You're fighting the stigma of,
Yeah.
of bipolar,
the stigma. It made me want to die more than the actual mental illness. Like,
wow.
It just the fact that, oh, like what if people find out? Like what if, now it helps me, in a career like essentially where I'm in mental health and in like the nonprofit work that I do. It's helpful because I can connect with people. And I understand. And there's also hope, right? Like you can be okay. Like you don't have to go into bitter ends if you're a dual diagnosis.
Break down what bipolar 1 is for me.
So
like what did your episode look like?
It's essentially periods of like a longer period of increased activity or mania, and then longer periods of depression. But medicated and with treatment, it's pretty much for me just like a mild depression, and sober. The sober is the important part, because for me, without sobriety, I don't have a chance.
Really?
None of my meds work. Nothing happens. Like I don't have a shot at health or recovery, even if I wasn't an addict. But like most people, the statistics are really high for people who have bipolar disorder and are addicts as well. But yeah, I think that being in a recovery community where most of us have something or other, like it's not uncommon to be dual diagnosis.
It's not, yeah.
It's not.
It's something that's more common.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a world where there is just addiction. There's something else.
I've heard of it. It's like a unicorn, kind of like maybe it's like addicts with no trauma. Like, no, it's just spiritual malady. It's like, wow, that's mythical.
Yeah.
But
Seriously.
that's not me. I got all of it. Full gambit. I've got the full panel. But yeah, I used to be really, really ashamed to the point where like I didn't want, just essentially with like all of the things that I've gone through, like I didn't want to open up. And I've always been like a really open, bubbly, silly person. And once I found out that I had bipolar disorder, I didn't want to be that person anymore because I didn't want to share with people. I was afraid. Just like I was like, all right, well, this proves what I've thought all along. I am in fact broken. And maybe, but I'm, where the cracks are is where the light shines through. So I got a lot of light.
Oh, that's the cutest thing I've actually ever heard.
Right.
So now it's something you, like you said, now it's like mild depression when it pops up.
Yeah, I think that I still struggle with, I guess, like regulation and like medication management with my psychiatrist, but it's nowhere near what it was when I was not being treated, or I essentially was being treated, but I wasn't sober. So the treatment wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so like I still have symptoms for sure. I still have symptoms, I still have episodes, but I don't feel that they are threatening to myself and others. And the people in my life might feel that they're not as well because I'm sober. A mental health episode in sobriety for me looks very different than a mental health episode in addiction. There's hope.
Yeah, there is. And another thing we were kind of talking about earlier is your identification with being non-binary.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm curious about. I was also stating that most of my friends are straight.
Yeah.
I'm not really surrounded by a lot of people in the...
It's interesting and it's hard and it's fun because I don't like labels at all. Like I am, if I had to choose one, I'd totally be non-binary, just kind of like fluid. But I just feel like I am really quick to identify with being an addict. That's for sure.
Because there's no issue with that label.
There's no issue with
Let's
that
really
label.
dissect this for a second.
I don't know. I think I just am like queer. Like I'm just different in terms of like I don't ascribe really with any gender any which way. And I like to dress how it feels good. And sometimes I'm really boy. And sometimes I'm like a girly pop and drag. And it's just fun. I think what stresses me out is when like outside voices get into the conversation, like, political voices. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I don't. Don't look at me. I'm safe. Like, but yeah, like I'm really just queer and I like fully embrace it.
You don't like labels in terms of gender identity and sexuality?
I guess I like the label queer.
Yeah.
For sure.
Why?
Because it's broad and I like that. Because for me, like I don't want to be like, all right, okay, I figured it out. Because like I'm always talking with my partner and I'm like, I figured it out. I'm a boy. And she's like, we'll talk next week.
Yeah.
Like we'll talk next week. Because I don't want to make anything definitive about like my identity. Because then I feel like I have to live in that definition. But I like the label queer because like just kind of like I like addict. Like it's kind of like a
What do you mean addict? You could be addicted to literally anything.
And I have been.
Yeah.
But I think like I don't like to be like confined in any which way. Like I think that like if I were to break it down, I'd be like a non-binary who's also a lesbian.
But isn't lesbian women who like women?
See? Therein lies the issue. Contradictions abound. It's too confusing. I can't. I'm just like, call me queer. You can, refer to me anyway with respect and yeah, we won't have an issue. I think I want to just have fun with everything. Like I think everything in life is meant to be fun and playful. And I want to have fun with my identity and my gender and all of those things. I get really stressed out about it because of, like, I don't know, just people just do not like trans people.
No.
They don't. It's really stressful.
Yeah, no. Because it's a confusing thing that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't make sense for me either sometimes. Like, sometimes I get it. I'm like, okay, I can mentally grasp this trans person, but maybe not the next because their situation is, like, more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I don't know. That makes total sense.
There's like, yeah. I feel like I personally know a lot of transphobic people that are okay with gay people.
Yeah.
But they're just like not cool with like non-binary or they, them. Or why do you feel the need to transition? Or there's a whole thing with people transitioning young. Yeah. I personally have a family member where they came out to me as a trans man and then started the transition and then stopped the transition. And it's kind of confusing for me as well because it's like I got used to referring to you as male and now I'm getting used to like, I don't know what you're identifying as right now. And it's like, I love him, I respect him, but it doesn't entirely make sense to me and we haven't really had that next level conversation of like, where are you now with your gender? But like I can kind of understand it in a sense, but when it comes, because transitioning is a huge decision, especially if you're going through hormone therapy and gender reassignment surgery.
Gender confirmation.
It's a big decision, and sometimes you feel like you sway. Personally, for me, like I grew up like as a tomboy. I feel comfortable. I've always like identified with woman and she, her. Like I love when somebody calls me beautiful and pretty. Like I love all those different words. And I remember when I was like presenting a little more masculine, I remember a girl said I was handsome once and I gagged, cringed, never talked to her again.
Gagged, cringed.
Like it was horrible. And yeah, it's like I feel comfortable being someone that identifies as a woman, but also can dress be masculine here and there.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like for me, it doesn't mean like internally I feel more like a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's a different experience for me, but it could be different for other people.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the point, right? Like we all have our own journey with this stuff, like with identity in general. And the thing is, like we're kind of in I think people don't realize how much power we have to create ourselves, to create the identity that feels most comfortable for us and most aligned with like our soul and our spirit. So like you can totally be a woman who dresses masculine and sometimes feminine or like likes to be called beautiful, doesn't like to be called handsome. The thing is that it's not a monolith, like the gender stuff. It's not, it's kind of, I think people are like really scared about it because it's like there's the potential for so much freedom, where like if people can really be whatever, it's like, oh, well, then the world will just turn to chaos. But for me, I think that's base creativity, like I think that if you look in like nature and stuff, things, animals, insects are continuously evolving. And I think as people, we oftentimes do not allow ourselves to evolve beyond what we feel is comfortable for other people. And I think that's the cool thing about trans folks and my own journey with gender identity is that there's like almost like this permission to evolve in what feels natural to folks and like even stop transitioning or detransition or like just continuously check in with what feels natural despite it not really being understood. And I think that's cool. I think that's fucking just, it's kind of like addiction, like we're like, people are getting sober, people don't understand it, or people are in addiction, they don't understand it. And it's like when we get sober, we allow ourselves to evolve in a way that feels natural and is life-saving. Often like people with any form of identity, like in I guess like my experience with gender or certain friends' experience with gender, it's like allowing ourselves to evolve even when it doesn't make sense to other people. And I think that's the queer experience. Like that's all gay people. I just think we all need to unite.
I feel like it's definitely a community that's separated.
Yeah. And I don't get that. I
think the a lot of things are just separating in a sense.
It's too much.
Even with like the recovery space. Like
Yeah.
we sometimes feel like there's only that one way to do recovery.
Yeah.
And we judge and give people shit for another way of doing it. It's like they're still changing their lives for the better. Why does it matter how they go about doing it?
I
Just
love
something
that.
I'm learning.
I love that. And I love that you brought up your experience with like your family and transness and the confusion regarding it, because that's how unity, right? One of the principles of 12 steps, unity recovery service, unity is created when we talk about, I don't understand this. I don't get it.
Get it. Yeah, that's this whole thing of this podcast.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like let's bring awareness and a little bit of
it.
education.
You know,
Let's have
like,
an open conversation about
right?
this,
Like,
because
no
it doesn't make sense to a lot of
Yeah.
people. Otherwise, it's just going to keep getting shit on
Yeah.
and hate, because it's like we're all in confusion and nobody's having that conversation.
It's like we're like eggshell walking around the entirety of like humanity. It's like it's eggshell. I don't like that. I think we're all so similar at our core. We all want love. We all want to love each other. We all want belonging, and we all want to be accepted. You know, and it's like that is what like that, and we're so like, I think people, especially like where we're at in the U.S., it's like I just there's so much tension. You know, it's like
Tension everywhere.
yeah, it is, and it's like. You know, like we're all so similar. We're so much more similar. And that's where the fear comes from.
It's like, wow, you actually might just feel the same feelings. I feel.
Yes.
Going back, this is going full circle.
Yeah.
Like we're all fucking human.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all feel the same feelings. We all bleed. We all grieve. We all have ancestral shame. We all have ways we want to evolve and fear about like change. Like we're all like that, and we all want to belong. And that, but we're just hurting each other left and right, trying to figure it out. Like,
be right, find the right
be
thing.
individual, like have our own. Like the separatism is an illusion.
Yeah. A big thing when I first got sober that I learned is like, you want to be terminally unique. Like you want to be different.
Yeah.
So fucking bad, but we're all the same.
Yeah.
So that was the thing I had to practice to not do.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like I find that too. Like, yeah, like I'm an openly queer person. I have a big mouth, and I've got a lot of friends who are so different than me. You know, I've got friends who are Republican. Like I've got friends who are on all sorts of different things.
It's very interesting the friends I have as well.
Right, because it's like it doesn't matter. We all bleed and we all crave belonging. And for me, I find the conversations, as long as they're respectful about differences, like that's where the fruit is. Like that's where the unity really is. You know, where we understand like, oh, all of our fears are the same, all of us. You know, and we're just like afraid of connection. Like,
honestly, yes.
Right? Like, we're like,
yes.
Oh, God, I can't.
Why
I'm
is
not
this-
like them.
Why is
you
this
know?
something we avoid?
Yeah.
something we run from?
That's what creates addiction, you know?
The opposite of addiction
is
yeah. That corny cliche.
yeah, there's so much fear right now. Like, fear is the dominant narrative. Doesn't have to be, you know? Like, things are actually not that deep. I mean, like, you know, like there are deep things in the world, pain, suffering for sure. But I think like the way we relate to one another doesn't have to be so deep. You know, it's like deep in the way that it's loving, but like, I guess in the way that like we have all of these judgments and preconceptions come up. And it's like, oh, well, that person is that. And I heard that person did that in the past. And what, you know, and it's like, if we're always thinking of that about other people, how do we think about ourselves? You know, it's like, it's very critical mindset that it just is not compassionate.
I know you're really passionate about Fuck the Stigma and you love our message. And
I
purpose
love
and
your
mission.
message. I'm a big fan.
What is it? Yeah. Tell me about why you resonate with it.
It's bringing humanity to these critical judgment points where it's like, oh, well, addicts are like this. People who have this mental illness are like this. People who have this, you know, identity, like gender, sexuality are like this. and that's all they'll ever be. Or it's like putting people in boxes. I love this like podcast and this initiative because it's giving like humanity behind like just one-dimensional judgments. And like we're not one-dimensional, you know, just because a function of someone's identity is XYZ does not mean that they are a one-dimensional portrait of what XYZ should be, you know? So I love what you're doing here. I'm a big fan. And yeah, like I'm in support of the mission and the conversations and the connection and collaboration. I'm a huge fan, and I have a new friend now, which is great. We're new friends.
I'm glad we're still growing out the community in California. It's beautiful. Yeah. And I'm really grateful we're reaching people, and it's like the message is hitting close to home, which makes me really happy. And I feel happy about it. Makes me feel really good about doing this.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful.
Well, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
You really are. I've been sharing your work with like all of my friends out in LA, and I'm like, I'm blown away. And like, keep it up. You're doing awesome.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I really hope somebody got something out of this.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.